I don't want to set the world on fire.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of The Folly of Man. Origins.
Sort of. It's not really an episode of The Folly of Man.
It's a pseudo kind of aside.
Yeah.
Like when we did the Halloween episode.
Thank you for joining us. Tonight is a very special episode of The Folly of Man, where we are celebrating 4 years on the air! On the air. We're not even on the air. We don't broadcast this through the air.
That's right. We've been broadcasting for a simultaneous 4 years in connected hours.
Hard to believe that in just 4 years we've made 87 episodes of The Folly of Man.
Yeah.
That's averaging almost 22 episodes a year.
Almost.
So we're better than British television, where you get 22 episodes.
I mean, that's just kind of a given, is that you're better than British television.
So
Next time on the East Enders.
We thought, you have one season with 4 episodes that they do every 4 years.
Yeah.
Technically, The Vicar of Dibley is still on the air.
Yes.
One
day.
How does that even work?
Britain.
I just wonder, like,
remember,
what are
British
they,
citizens,
you know what?
You're paying for it.
You know what? They're just watching reruns of Great British Bake Off and Antiques Roadshow over and over again because it's the only thing, or maybe the Nightly News because it's the only thing that has any substantial number of episodes.
Yep.
It is all the more impressive what they did with Top Gear when you consider British broadcasting.
You mean tearing up the airstrip where they're at, where the
for houses, rip in peace. So we thought that it might be fun. We think that it might be fun. It might not be, but it's going to happen anyways. So you need to be prepared for this. Have I wiggled my way out of shot? I guess I somehow managed to do that. Let's get a little close. We're going to get real close. Come in and get smooth on the mic. We thought that it might be fun for Chris and I to talk about how we met.
What?
Well, that's what I was
You said we were going to have cake.
You fell for the old Pinkie Pie ploy.
No, we're not devolving into a Portal reference, I promise.
It's a triple P, Pinkie Pie ploy.
I
So
thought that was a pinky swear. Yeah.
I think what would be great is if we dropped the normal, not like there's any professionalism in the show anyway, but rather than this is my announcer voice and welcome to the show and now we're going to talk about these things, let's just hop right into it.
Hold on. If we're going to do the dress
Okay. You're going to stop pretending that you need glasses?
Okay, guys, we need to talk.
You're going to take your shirt off? Start picking your toes?
I just wanted this to be unscripted. I was thinking that, lately...
Wait, this is one of those we need to talk YouTube videos?
Yes.
A very serious episode?
I'm kind of tired of making the same content over and over, and I know that's what you're here for, so I'm going to stop doing that. I'm just going to do reviews of advertised products that are paying me like thousands of dollars.
Yeah. You know what it is?
And you can't stop me.
We have AIDS.
Follow me on OnlyFans.
And you need to get tested. If you've watched this show, you have been exposed. Go to your local Planned Parenthood and have them swab your anus.
Thoroughly.
Or your sex organ. I don't know how, there's like some furries and there's like some people, y'all are into some weird stuff. Whatever you use to have sex, get that tested.
Even your ears. Ugh. Or that weird thing in Japan where people were licking each other's eyeballs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really great way to get one hell of an eye infection.
Mm-hmm.
Have I somehow... How am I still... Am I just that broad? Is that my problem, that I'm just too wide? Yeah, we'll get in real close, like Bert and Ernie. Oh, man, am I Bert?
No. You've got it completely wrong.
I
Our
think you're
dichotomy
more of a
is
Bert.
not Bert and Ernie. We are Statler and Waldorf.
No! I'm still going to buy you that t-shirt. I understand the Muppets on a level that you would. So, where do we begin? Really?
Well, the chapter starts off with...
No, right, yeah. Scene. 2 young colts in a stable.
That sounds like we're headed down a really, really lascivious path.
Well, it's like at the offer of somebody doing some fan art for the channel. Like, of course, yeah, sure, great.
Yeah.
Would love that, right? No Rule 34. Dear God.
At least make the nudity tasteful.
What I'm really concerned is that the fan art is going to be us as ponies. I'm very concerned about this. Because
you were concerned?
I don't need a pony version. If anything, what it should be is
Pony
like.
Sona.
Do you remember the original channel art for the show was you as a Steel Ranger and me as a human? I feel like that's way more apropos.
Say it with me, a Pony Sona.
A Pony Sona.
Which is one of the weirdest, like, etymological abortions that's ever existed.
I would prefer to say Ponsona. Because that sounds like a product coming from Sony.
With the man bun, you're really coming across with... Amazingly, not craft beer, so we're not that far down the rabbit hole.
No, I may have a man bun, but I am not pretentious in that regard. Although it is tough. I don't realize where I am pretentious until somebody tells me that their favorite movie is one of the Fast and Furious films. And I just get, like, so angry. Flames on the side of my face.
There's worse.
Yes, there is plenty worse.
In the same
they could say Avatar.
I was going to say Transformers.
Yeah, I mean, just Michael Bay in general.
Yeah,
or James Cameron.
Well, the reason I say
2000.
Transformers, I think Transformers is and I know you think terribly of the Fast and Furious because it is derivative schlock.
They have had to change the title of that film now. It is now Intersex Formers, because that word is offensive. Yeah, intersex.
Regardless, I'm not gonna follow you down that rabbit hole.
Are there hermaphrodites in the My Little Pony universe?
Hermaphrodites?
Hermaphrodites.
I don't think that they've touched on that. It's a children's show. They're kind of a little bit surface deep.
So you're saying they didn't talk about rape in the show? Because it certainly comes up in the books quite a bit.
No, they didn't talk about rape in the show.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Really missed opportunity. So, again, I feel like we're being very evasive here. You and I have been friends for 20 years.
21?
No. It was 20. My family moved to Asheville at the end of 2000, beginning of 2001. And it is now 2021.
Yes.
So we would have met 20 years ago, right around this time.
2000 is a much rounder number.
Sure.
And I believe
if it just makes you feel better to add an extra year, we can do that.
Yeah, because somebody asks you how old you are, you mostly go by year.
Yeah. But it was the year that we both turned 11.
Yeah.
And you're 31.
Except I think it was Christmas.
We had not met yet. My family moved in on Christmas. We had not met yet. Because I remember the day. Hey, here's what I'll do. How about I tell y'all the day that I met Chris? It was probably more formative for me than it was for you.
Okay, I just remember you playing with Kate and me playing with that kid.
Nope. Different story. So, allow me to paint a scene for you. Christopher and I lived 2 doors down. I won't say the address because there's still people that live on that street. They don't need to be bothered.
No.
Needless to say, though, we did both live in West Asheville. My family just moved there from Raleigh. Shocker! Now we're back in that area.
Yeah.
Well, for you for the first time. Although it's been many years that you've been down. I know. And I, being desperate for friendship and attention in the neighborhood, had befriended the neighborhood bully, who was like, well, you're weird, and I know this other guy who plays video games, and he's weird, and I'll introduce the two of you. It's kind of an oversimplification, but that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
Also acknowledging in that I was weird, right? But he brought me over to your house.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was in prison.
Probably.
Certainly.
Sired. Let's say sired. Many illegitimate children at this point.
Yeah.
Remember, neighborhood bully, right? So, he brought me over to your house, and I remember very distinctly. This was before you had a fence. This was when you just had the dog run. So you had Oreo when he was quite young, but still looking like he was on death's door.
As always.
Eventually, there was an assumption that he had died years ago, but he was actually just being animated by the parasites inside of his body, kind of like the not the flood, the what do you call them? The big tank creatures from Halo. The big tank creatures. Hunters. Thank you. Like hunters. I was going
to be facetious and actually use the correct term for like the alien name, and I can't remember it now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't read the novels. I know that you did.
Yeah, you loser.
Yeah, that's right. I was too busy reading Lord of the Rings and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Star Wars books. Nerd. I know, right?
Not reading Halo fan fiction, which is effectively what it is.
Yeah. Well, especially because they don't consider it canon anymore.
Yeah.
But then again, none of the Star Wars books that I read are canon now.
Then again, I think it's Eric Newland. I still have the actual novels. They actually are very good. They just the games are terrible comparatively.
So, anyways, I was invited over to your house, and they're banging on the screen door, trying to get your attention. And that was at the time that you had the sofa directly right up against the window.
Yep.
And right next to the window was a screen window, right? Because it's the South, man, and up in the mountains, it doesn't get particularly hot. People just have their windows open all the time, so you have screens to
and
keep
you have
the bugs from coming in.
And, honestly, we were kind of cheaper.
Well, sure.
So we were all kind of poor, so not much in the way of AC.
But a pale ghost rises up from the sofa, almost as if, like, the undead. And I don't want to say buck naked, but you were definitely wearing a pair of underwear, your sandals, and a smile. Well, truthfully, a grimace, but it was very much we had interrupted your afternoon nap, and you were like, "Ugh. What? Oh, okay, come on in."
I could have sworn that it was actually, I saw you playing with Kate way before, but...
I mean, you may have seen us beforehand. I don't know. You were...
I swear, because I was
But
playing...
it certainly wasn't how we met.
No.
Because I remember quite distinctly that first moment of, like, it was the first time I'd ever seen one of my peers almost naked and being very comfortable around people, just like, I'm just chilling in my underwear, man. And I'm not talking boxer briefs. This was tidy whities. And do you still own those pair of sandals?
No.
No? Well, I know you have another one that looks very similar to the same pair.
Because they're sandals. They all look the same. No, those disintegrated years ago. Like, yeah, no.
Please don't be offended. It's just, it was a very formative moment. And of course, I was like, wow, he is absolutely bizarre. I guess I'm going to be his friend forever. But we played video games. And I seem to remember you showing me Myst on your computer.
Probably.
And I really hadn't been exposed to any serious PC gaming at that time.
At one time, it was actually the most purchased PC software.
I mean, I was really into, like, what was it? Freddy the Fish. And,
yes.
And was it Huggy Bear? It was something like that. It was something a bear. It was in that same vein.
I think it was Huggy Bear, and I have, I actually have Pajama Sam, No Need to Hide When It's Dark Outside, which is a fantastic game.
And I had Spy Fox. That was the one I really liked. But my computer didn't have enough RAM to handle the last third of the game, and so when I'd get past the Go Fish portion of it, it would just crash. Eventually, we got a nicer computer, and I reloaded it and beat it. And when I beat it as an older tween, like I said, I played that as a boy, I was like, why was this so hard?
Yeah.
It's a point-and-click adventure. Why was this hard?
Well, one of my first games... and I started out playing PC games, and then I went over to, I guess what you'd say consoles, and I stopped playing PC games as much. But one of the first PC games, I take it back. The first PC game I ever played was Duke Nukem 1, which is a side-scrolling orange man.
I came here to
for DOS.
Kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
I came here to kick gum and chew ass, and I'm all out of ass. Dick kick 'em.
So, anyways, that's how
that's
how I remember how we met. And as usually as little boys do, it was very much like a love-hate friendship, rife with like stupid spats about crap. But for the most part, we had a really fun childhood in that neighborhood. We'd go swimming in the creek. We'd drink creek water that we really had no business
However,
doing.
it does make us now more tolerant to that kind of water.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could drink any.
I had to have an interesting story with that. Went up to Craggy Pinnacle, which is up there on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I got up near the top, and there's a natural spring that comes out of the side of the mountain near the crest. It's actually quite interesting. Kind of shows you how the water table works. And as it's coming out, I'm thirsty, so I reach down and start drinking it.
Yeah.
I drink the groundwater from around there. Somebody else comes up and they reach down, and I have to stop them and say, have you ever drank any groundwater from around here? Just straight water. And they're like, no. And I'm like,
Don't touch that.
Don't touch it.
Now, in fairness, spring water from an aquifer, safer. Yeah, especially if it's flowing out, but still probably better to be cautious.
Yeah, I would not. If you have not acclimated yourself to the groundwater there, do not do that.
Sure.
Unless you feel like risking it.
So, we had a pretty good childhood. We, like I said, spent a lot of time outdoors, building invisible forts, and it was a typical
damming up the creek.
Yeah, of course. Well, so the creek that was behind our house. So you had the creek came together in an L, right? So you had a creek that ran by your house, and there's one that ran by mine, and they converged and went underneath an elevated railroad line. Now, as a boy, it felt like it was very high off the ground, but probably was only 12 feet and built upon a mud embankment.
Yeah.
Not mud, rock and dirt, right?
Yeah. Soil.
But we used to, one summer we actually took buckets of water and a big hemp rope that you provided that we lashed up at the top near the railroad tracks, and we'd slide down that mud hill down into the creek.
And our parents nearly killed us because you know what red clay does to white underwear?
Stains it forever.
Forever.
You know how I know? Because my mom still has several of those pairs of tidy whities as a guilt trip reminder of like, see what you did here? Do you remember when you did this? And I was like, yeah, it was rad as hell.
It was amazing.
It was. But yeah, so we used to dam up the creek, and we'd take a wheelbarrow and haul enormous boulders.
Well, because
put them in the wall.
Because the creek effectively was owned by the railroad company.
Right.
They would kind of line it with riprap, and we would take the riprap
and build a dam. Yeah.
And they would and I never saw a single one of them, but somebody would go through
Come
there
through,
from the railroad and knock
bust
it back down.
Bust it up. But anyways, it was a great place to, and I know I've lamented in the past that it was kind of a Asheville and Appalachian culture in general is a very insular community, right?
Yeah.
And everywhere else in the South that I had experienced is very warm and friendly and more kind of like, oh, more the merrier.
The best way I can explain it is, and this isn't true everywhere, there's a lot of places where they'll just shoot you. But most places when they're being warm and greeting in Southern Appalachia, they will always kind of say, "So how long are you planning on staying?"
Like when are you leaving?
No, they wouldn't say when are you.
No,
leaving.
of course.
They'd say
so how long are you planning to stay? Of course.
Yeah, how long are you staying?
I understand. Yeah.
So they'd say it in the most polite way, but it was really just a get out.
But what I will say is that though you still lovingly refer to me as Flatlander,
you did learn to drive in the mountains.
Yes, I did. I would say that I'm an excellent driver because I learned to drive in the mountains. I learned to drive well in the mountains. I never put my car in a ditch like you and Bobby did.
I never put it in a ditch.
Yeah, you put it into a tree. Or almost hit the tree.
I destroyed the tree.
You destroyed the tree.
I destroyed the tree, but that is a story for another time.
Bobby put several cars in a ditch. I can remember him putting.
I don't
want to speak out of turn for him. He's not a part of this show, so I don't want to just talk shit about him. But let's go ahead and talk shit about him when he put the Miata in the ditch.
Well, as far as I remember, he put the Miata in the ditch once, but he also managed to, on a separate occasion, nearly wrap it around several rocks.
We were leaving the Walmart once, and it had been raining lightly, and I don't know if y'all know this about Miatas, but they're rear-wheel drive. Well, if you slam on the acceleration and take off and turn the wheel real tight, well, you'll lose traction on a freshly paved wet road. And we did a spin out in the intersection leaving Walmart that was certainly not intentional, and it scared the shit out of him.
I actually he had me drive that Miata once, and it had the weirdest problem where the shift linkage was, where you'd go from first to second. For all the people who drive automatics and don't know how to drive stick, just cover your ears. Just cover your ears. I don't want to confuse you. You'd go from first to second to fifth because the first, third, and fifth gear slots were so close together. You'd slam it into fifth and not realize it. But he had me driving it, and I was driving back from somewhere, and he wanted to. This Subaru, this ratted out Subaru Brat, wanted to go. And so we were going out, we were turning, and as we were turning, I felt the back end lift up, and I just let off a little bit just so I wouldn't lose it. But Bobby felt it too, and he started having a panic attack because he was certain I was going to lose it.
There was one time Bobby and I had come to Raleigh, and we were coming from Lynn Road and turning onto Creedmoor. You know that intersection where there's like the gas station across the way? Mm-hmm. Well, when he turned left, he was to the left of the fucking median. And I'm like, oh my God, have you never driven in a big city before? What are you doing? Like, he literally had to slam on the brakes, reverse, and then go, like, he was driving up the wrong way.
Well,
up Creedmoor Road.
Well, it's a very large road for still having a median like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't even the entire way. It was just one of those, like, normal, it's just a little concrete bump in the middle. Like, what? Like... Anyways, he clearly was out.
He saw the tree line and he was like, oh, okay, well, here's the road.
Yeah, it's fine. You scared the shit out of me. Because, like, now that would scare me, being literally on the wrong side of the road.
No, I have been on the wrong side of the road once, but that was because it was a rainstorm where you could not see. Yeah. And I had to drive because I was driving for a job, and we had a timetable to meet, so I had to drive.
Yep.
So it's not like I could sit there and wait for the rain to pass. Wasn't going to happen.
So, our parents were always in very different careers, but both professionals. I would say kind of lower middle class. In both instances. I guess I'm just talking about us growing up. So, we never really had much, but I would still say we had, fairly good quality of life. Good enough group of friends.
Well, let me talk about it this way. When it comes to what was present, what was not present, I tell people that I grew up in 1978, or that's when I started kind of growing up. And the reason I say that is because I was not born in 1978, but the culture, society, and the technology that was present in that area at the time was far regressed from the rest of the world.
There were payphones in Asheville until 10 years ago.
There are payphones in Asheville still. I can show you where one is. You know where 240 comes off, where Lake Julian is, onto Hendersonville Road. Yeah, at the gas station right there, there's still a payphone, and it still works. That's how it was. I had a television that had dials on the front. We had another television that had dials on the back, and on the front were fancy push buttons, and you'd push the button, and it would go to the dial on the back.
Yeah. I remember playing Ocarina of Time on a TV that had analog everything.
Yeah, I had one of the TVs we had said Sears Roebuck. Yeah.
Of course, my record player is Sears Roebuck.
Yeah. Which, I mean, but that was the fanciest things that we had. And so we kind of grew up in that a little, I don't want to say permissive, but it was that kind of time period.
Yeah.
One of the best examples I can give.
We were really concerned about the oil embargo and the Iranian hostage crisis.
Yeah. I mean, the Bay of Pigs was still fresh on everyone's mind.
Wow. That's a good pull there, my friend.
So speaking of Bobby, a person you've not met on the show, and I don't know if you will, but we're going to try.
I was going to say, he's really, it's any story about our childhood, at least to a certain point, right? So Bobby didn't live in our neighborhood, but another formative part of our childhood was the Boy Scouts.
Yep.
And I joined a troop, and Bobby was already in the troop. His family was like in the troop forever, but I resisted getting into a troop because I was in Cub Scouts in Raleigh, and I was in Cub Scouts when I lived in Fremont. But I resisted because I always kept feeling like my family was going to have to move again. My family moved a lot. Even in Asheville, we moved 3 times.
Yep.
Which is absurd for an 8-year time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I always kept feeling like, oh shit, here we go again. I'm going to have to move again. I don't want to get settled. I don't want to be a part of a church group. I don't want to be part of a scout troop and then have to leave. And so around 13, I got back into scouts. I felt comfortable enough to do that.
And then you invited me.
Yeah, well, because I thought, one, it would be an excuse for you and I to spend more time together since we didn't live in the same neighborhood anymore, which is so funny. I still lived 5 minutes away, but when you're a kid, you don't drive. And mountain roads are not good for riding bicycles on to see your friends. Like, it was too...
around there.
It was too far to ride a bike.
The road that I was off of had people who would drive like murderous psychopaths.
Sure, like even if I
drove on that road. That's bad enough.
If I'd walked along New Leicester Highway, I mean, not super good there, but the river, like the creek road down,
that's what I'm talking about.
That would have been ridiculous. People treated that like a drag strip, and it was dangerous.
If you weren't going, and this is a little 2-lane road that's spindly and has no shoulder, and there's just foliage on either side. If you weren't going about 65 miles an hour, you had somebody in a giant lifted truck riding your rear end
with truck nuts, back when truck nuts were legal.
Yeah.
But I should say, so I got into scouts, and it was fun. It was something that you wouldn't have traditionally done, but it was a great environment, and I can safely say that we both got through scouts unscathed. I know people are real sensitive about that, but we had a great troop.
Yeah.
And in fact, you and I were both homeschooled, and we wound up falling into a scout troop that was like half homeschoolers.
Yep.
Normally, homeschoolers are an extreme minority and are bullied for being homeschooled.
Well, it's also a geographic thing because you're up in the mountains and.
Right. Well, and everybody was homeschooled for different reasons.
Well, let's say as an example, where we lived was inside city limits, but Asheville refused to send a bus out.
School bus, right?
A school bus to actually pick us up, and so they said we were outside of the lines, so you had to go with the county.
Well, and here's
and the county didn't send a bus over to us either, so it was like the county refused us, and the city said if you wanted to go with us, we had to pay an extra like $35 a week.
And the dichotomy here, too. So here's the dichotomy, right? Asheville, for those of you who don't know, is kind of like the San Francisco of the East. They think of themselves as a very progressive, very artsy-fartsy community.
And no one there is from there.
And no one's from there. But also, they don't recycle.
No.
Right? So, like, only some places in the city have recycling.
Yep.
Which is, like, bizarre.
Municipal recycling is very rare. No, it's a massive city of hypocrisy and...
Anyways.
I hate it.
Let's refocus on the relationship. Asheville was its own thing, right? Because we were getting to Bobby.
Yes.
So Bobby was a friend of ours that we met and made through the Boy Scouts. And he really was the third of the triumvirate.
Yeah.
We were kind of an inseparable trio, in a great big way. So it's kind of a weird thing for us to have this show and not have him be a part of it. But life changes. People live different places.
Yeah. He's far away in a different city.
Sure. But he was a part of, and I guess this is an interesting way to get into it, our very first podcast venture.
Yeah.
I would say we were early adopters. It had to have been when we were 16, because there was driving. We were driving. Or do you think we actually started at 15?
I remember we started at probably 16, because I remember 16 and 17. I started my job at 18, and I remember there being a big spat because we couldn't schedule it together because we brought on Kyle, who was a guy who we kind of thought would fit, and it ended up didn't. But he refused to record any day but Friday night. Yeah. And I had to get up at like 4:30 in the morning on Saturday. And so it was not going to work because everybody needed to record until like 11 at night, and I needed to get up on Saturdays.
Well, and you were working at 16.
Yeah.
You were working
No, I was working at 18.
No. You started working before then because you were working at Ryan's.
Ryan's was 18.
Right. But you got to remember something. Like when I turned 18, that's the fall that I went to college.
Yeah.
And we basically stopped doing the show, right?
Yeah, I remember.
So
I got my job, I think, like 13 days after I turned 18. Like, it was some ridiculously short number.
I just seem to remember you working for a longer period through that.
Nope.
Maybe not.
I hated it. I hated it for bad enough that I could have been doing that. But no, because at the end of that, I worked at the Best Buy. I worked at Best Buy as a cashier. They worked me 64 hours a week. And then at the end of the seasonal period, they let me go because of poor performance. And It's like, you're dealing with me, and it's 64 hours a week, and you're dealing with an 18-year-old. Yeah, you're going to get bad performance.
Well, but not everybody here knows that you have had a heart condition.
Yes, but I mean, I'm talking in general. Yeah. You take an 18-year-old, any 18-year-old, and you work them 64 hours a week, aside from a very few amount of really good people, most of them are going to have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Because they're still at that age where their body is growing a little bit.
Now, I don't know if we ever really covered this, but you've had a heart surgery since we started this show.
Yes, because I remember we actually did the episode with me barely sitting at the table when we did the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily have to rehash that, but I would also say that that's been a very pivotal part of our friendship, because I remember when you had your first open heart surgery at 16, and how big that was. I remember you missed out on Scout Camp, which you loved. You even worked for Scout Camp.
Yep. I missed out on a lot of scouting because of that, and there's funny pictures because afterwards, there's all these pictures, and somebody came up to me like, "Why are you slouching and all of this?" It's like because my musculature was broken.
Yeah, they carved your chest up.
Yep.
I should also clarify, things are good now.
Yeah. But going back, what I was talking about the permissiveness of how we grew up. So, Bobby, his dad, when he was young, had a 1967 Firebird. He got a hold of that same car when we were all like 16, 17 years old.
Right. So we went to this event twice a year in
called Rod Run.
Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, called Rod Run, and it's literally like 5 miles of just non-stop cars,
yeah.
and not high performance. I mean, yeah, there are some high performance vehicles, but it's mostly just a bunch of tuners, a bunch of classic cars, hot rods, rat rods, motorcycles there,
deuces, and not the type of deuces.
And it's literally just like, it's a mix of everybody.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the guys with the underglow, you've got the truck nuts, you've got the classic car enthusiasts, you've got bikers that look like they just came out of Sturgis. It's just kind of a weekend long party.
The people with the flathead V8s that somehow make enough noise to where it'll deafen you from inside a building, and you don't even know how it works because even if they take the mufflers off, it would be quieter. What in the world did they do? Yeah. Anyway, so we get this Firebird built up. And we're going out, and we're at the intersection of Leicester Highway and Patton Avenue.
Right. I know the story.
And so we're 19. Me and Bobby are both 19. He's driving. And what are two 19-year-olds going to do in
a 1967 Firebird?
In a 1967 Firebird 400.
Some people may not know what 400 means.
I mean, it's a 400 cubic inch engine, which is a 6.6 liter engine.
That's big.
That
is a thirsty beast.
Before 1970,
how many gallons to the mile did you get that in that thing?
if you were trying to go in it, you could probably get 7.
Yeah. 7 gallons to the mile.
7 miles to the gallon.
7 miles to I know.
Yeah,
I know.
But so here we are.
You know, our European listeners are like, "Are you kidding me?" It's like, no, we're not kidding you.
Before 1971, American V8s were actually super powerful, but they were also gigantic and heavy.
Yeah.
And then
The
1971
thing drives
happened,
like an aircraft carrier, and if you're like, "Well, I don't know what an aircraft carrier drives like," I bet you can imagine.
And now imagine it's an aircraft carrier that is about as floppy as a fish.
Yeah.
So it's that bad. Like this thing had no handling.
Well, it's like my '82 Lincoln Continental. That sucker, you'd like come to a stop at a light, and the thing would be like,
oh yeah.
Jesus.
So what do two 19-year-olds do? But
Floor it.
get up to no good.
Yeah. You gun it from light to light.
Well, no. What he did was Bobby looks side to side. He goes, "You see anyone?" And I look. No.
Bunch of idiot 19-year-olds.
And so brake, gas. Now, mind you, 1967 didn't have advanced technology in the U.S., so they had drum brakes. And so what happened is drum brakes don't hold very well, and that engine made a whole bunch of torque. I think
So you burn your tires.
So we just and one tire. It's an open diff, so of course it's just the one tire and it's burning. The one-wheel wonder, we called him. And he just lays into it, and it's burning good enough to make a whole plume of smoke, and it's just coming straight up, and the engine is making this fantastic noise. And he lets off, and the engine dies down and catches itself right at the last second, like you imagine it would, and the smoke starts to clear, and up right beside it pulls County.
Yeah, Buncombe County Police. Buncombe County
Sheriff, yeah. And he just rolls down the window and yells, "Do it again!" That's where and when I grew up.
I want to really clarify. For some people, they're like, well, this is obviously what happens in America. This is what I picture America being like.
Yeah.
But in truth, it's really not most of America.
That's a very romanticized version of what America was back in the 70s.
Right, but
it is not now.
It is kind of an example of a simpler version of rural life that does exist in America. And though you and I live in a metropolitan area now, we are both from rural, poor North Carolina.
Yep.
I'm originally from the coastal end of things, so flatland. You know, the side that gets slammed by hurricanes.
Flatlander.
Yeah, I know. The land of open sky is what you would say. There's sky for miles. You'd think that the mountains would be sky for miles, but actually, you're always below another peak, and so the sun sets super early, and the temperature drops like crazy.
Depends on which valley you're in. If you're in East-West Valley, it's not too bad, like Maggie Valley or Nantahala Gorge.
Yeah.
But if you're up somewhere like Daniel Boone Campground, where it's a north to south
God.
valley.
Oh my God.
Yeah, sundown is like
4 in the summer.
In the summer, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah, you can see the glow over your head, the orange glow just a little bit, but you're like, it's dark.
Yeah.
I need to get out my flashlight.
Made it really comfortable during the summer. Now during the winter,
it never really got very hot, but we had sub-zero temperatures out of that camp.
Oh yeah.
When we'd go on retreats.
Oh yeah, the lake there is hilarious because whenever there was a summer camp, and of course you'd have other Boy Scout troops come up, we'd always tell the campers, what's the temperature? Oh, it's about, 60 degrees.
It was a man-made lake from a spring-fed river, and deep. So it's almost like a fjord, right?
Yeah.
It was very deep in the middle because again, it was a mountain draw valley that they put a dam at one end of and just let the mountain ice cold river water fill the thing. And like we all knew, any member of the troop up there were like, well, we're not doing any of our water badges here because fuck that. Right.
However,
but we'd have troops from
Florida.
We'd have troops from Florida and Texas. Don't forget the Texas kids. They'd come up and be like, "Yeah, man, there's water here. I'm gonna do canoeing. I'm gonna do. There's no gators in this water. It's safe."
No, the Florida kids were always the greatest ones because they could perform magic.
Yeah.
They were actually magic. What they would do is the first thing you got to do when you're in Boy Scouts and you have to get the water thing, you have to jump in and make sure you can swim. So what they do is the Florida kids would jump in and somehow manage to, before they fully submerge themselves, turn right around, grab the dock, and pull themselves right back out without getting wet.
I saw one of those.
I don't know how.
I saw one of those children skip across the water. It was like a stone.
It's a shock for sure.
Yeah. You know that scene when James Bond runs across the crocodiles' heads?
Oh, God.
Yeah, from the bad James Bond movies.
Oh,
yeah,
God, don't remind me.
It was like that. I need another beverage. Intermission?
Intermission. Let's begin intermission. Sure. Look out, Sven. Hey, Talk Takamata, what do you say? I just got back from the audit of Fae. Audit of Fae? What's the audit of Fae? It's what you oughtn't to do, but you do anyway. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum.
The Inquisition, the intermission. You know you're drinking some delicious iced tea.
Brew.
All right. And we're back. Talking about more shit from our childhood that people probably don't care about. But it's cathartic for me. This is therapy. You're all invited to our therapy session.
I never knew my father.
We also went to church together. Mm-hmm. And we're a part of the youth group and that whole mixed bag.
Wait, you're admitting to going to church on the internet? Do you know what they're going to do to you?
Gasp.
You aren't enlightened by your own intelligence?
No. I'm Episcopalian. We're raised to question, right? It's nothing but questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did they mean by this?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Why would you ask? Huh? Why don't you ask your God? But I would say that was also intensely formative. We have some mutual friends from there that we still know to this day. But there's also a bunch of rich snobs that we dealt with that we couldn't stand. Pricks. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I've always felt like my personality's very much been a bully buster. I don't like bullies, and if you try and bully me, I'm gonna do something to belittle you and make you look small in front of other people. But I seem to have come across a lot of really cruel people in the circles that I traveled in, and surprisingly, in my homeschool circle.
Yeah.
Again, I think it was partly being outsider.
Yeah.
I was, a very insular community.
It's a very isolationist. Saying insular, I don't think really portrays how far it is. It's an isolationist community.
But it's people like, you grew up with these people, I've had the same friends since I was born, and you're not one of them.
My family has been friends with your family as far back as we can remember.
Right, and it's almost like people are almost married off, and it's
I hear
very
stories
bizarre.
about back when they lived in Henderson County in North Carolina. It's like, how long ago was that? I don't know, maybe 150 years. Yeah.
But see, I remember being in predominantly my homeschool groups, there was like two major factions. There was a large group of Presbyterians, which is strange enough, and there was another large group of Roman Catholics, and I was just a little Episcopalian in between them. For you Europeans, Episcopalians are American Anglicans, if that helps.
But non-American Anglicans, because if you see an Anglican...
Well, there is the Anglican Church in the United States.
Be aware of that.
They're way less cool about the homosexuals.
That's the reason they call themselves Anglicans.
Yeah, they are way less cool about that. Mm-hmm. Which is even interesting because the Church of England is not like they're super conservative on that. I'm getting sidetracked.
Yep. Speaking of the Vicar of Dibley.
Yes, of course. But, so, Chris...
Yes.
There's no pony pun. Don't worry. I'm not taking you down that path. But I don't even know where I was. Oh, I was just talking about. Anyways, kids are cruel. Whatever. It was fine.
Don't give your children alliterative names, you idiots.
Yes.
Stop it.
So I do feel like, though, when I went off to college, that you and I we did lose touch for a time.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a moment where I realized. Because what you do when you go off to college is, I don't know who I am. I need to try and figure out who I am, and I need to figure out who I'm surrounding myself with. I need to just lay
everyone around me until I find the right person.
Well, I certainly didn't do that.
Well, I didn't either, but I didn't go to college.
Right, yeah.
Tried.
But I do remember I called you on your birthday. I don't know if you remember this, but I called you on your birthday in 2009. So I'd gotten through fall semester, and it was spring semester freshman year. And I realized that you and I really hadn't talked. I think we'd maybe seen each other over Christmas briefly, but just hadn't spent any time together. Mm-hmm. And I remember calling you on your birthday, and I don't know if it meant anything to you, but it meant a lot to me because I regretted the loss that I had. Because Chris and I have always been... We always tried to spend a lot of time together. Even when we didn't live together, we were always in the same neighborhood. We were trying to get our parents to drop one of us off at the other's house or do something. And my parents were usually happy to oblige, or to pick you up, or your mom would come get me. And it was very easy because we were only a couple minutes apart.
Yep.
Once we could drive, it was even more so. It was going to have... it's actually very much the pattern we have now. It was going to have coffee multiple times a week, sitting at a Starbucks or a Port City Java and then a Mountain Java.
Yeah. What was it? It was Port City and then Mountain, and then it's become something else.
I'm sure it's something else now. I have no clue.
They probably built it down and replaced it with apartments.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Steinmart behind there, bulldozed down, replaced it with apartments.
But I remember distinctly always relishing in our conversation. It's always been, and we always had very similar interests and whatever. Even if there was something that one of us was into more than the other, we were very supportive of. Like, I remember, as little as you cared about sports, I was always playing on a team of some kind, and you would come to a couple of my games from time to time. Yeah, which was great. I hated really anybody coming to watch me play, but we had a very, I would say, in spite of things we don't talk about, we had a very good friendship in childhood with each other. Yeah. And I think there was commonality between you and I with our families that we were able to kind of commiserate on. Yeah. Similar shared experiences. We've shared before that, like, mental illness runs in our families. But so it was
runs? Takes the fastest car in the world and tries to set a land speed record?
Again, this isn't a therapy session, but it was just something. It was something that you and I could share, right? And it was. I have very, very fond memories of our times together. I have negative memories of a lot of other things, but I always have very fond memories of you and I going on backpacking trips or spending time at the church. I think about some of the influential people, and I think that's a tough thing about adulthood too. You could have somebody who was an intense motivator and stabilizer and had a big impact on your life at a certain age that you have zero relationship with now. Yep. You and I have a mutual mentor who was a great friend to us then, who we both basically have no relationship with now.
No.
And that's fine.
I would say that's important to learn how to let go. Yeah. Think of the Buddhist sand mandalas.
Of course, right.
Creating something which is this
a mandala is it's an intricate design made in different colored sands on the floor. You may have seen them before, but they're intensely intricate and they're huge. They're like 20 by 20 feet.
They're like the size of carpets, and they have the detail of like a Persian rug. It's amazing.
But the minute that it's complete,
the very moment the last grain of sand is placed,
they sweep it up.
They sweep it up and throw it in the river.
Because it doesn't matter.
Because it is to focus upon the impermanence of life and the idea that all things will fade. That's very, it's Buddhist. Yeah. I remember my favorite story related to that is this woman going to see them making a one, and she brings her like 5-year-old child, and the 5-year-old child, while she's not looking, goes and runs in and sees them playing with sand. So what's a 5-year-old going to do? He's going to go play in the sand. He starts kicking it up and everything. She has a conniption, and the
my God, what are you doing?
You're ruining this thing. And the monks stop her and say, no. He understands. He gets it. He gets it. Let him
enjoy this. Let him enjoy this moment,
because he knows right now what we all try to strive to achieve.
But you do know that there was that one monk who was working real hard on their 1 by 1. And they're like, son of a bitch, you piece of shit, kid! I swear to God, I'm going to kick you back into another life. I hope you reincarnate as a slug. You don't get to escape the cycle. I escape the cycle.
Oh, there's probably those Buddhists.
And then you're like, yikes, what a Theravada Buddhist, am I right? I'm more of a Mahayana guy.
Vajrayana or nothing.
Jesus Christ. Wow, Vajrayana. One, I'm impressed that you remember Vajrayana, but they are the weirdest sect.
Well, they're the most, I would say they are the most mystic. Devoted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, their whole thing is like, we don't matter, your body doesn't matter, nothing matters once you're dead.
I would say, devoted to it.
They take their holy men into the mountains and hack them into pieces and feed them to vultures. It is
because the body does not matter.
And I agree. However, I do not want to take my father's body when he dies one day into the mountains and hack him into pieces. That there is something to that seems intensely traumatic. But this is a conversation we had before. Morality and what is acceptable and unacceptable is intensely subjective.
No, it's intensely I would say it's guided, but yes, it is by its very nature different between geographic areas. I would say geographic and climatological. I'd say in an area where you have more of an importance on a human life because of the necessity of their life, you would have a greater importance on the fact that they live.
The integrity of the body.
Exactly. If you live in an area where food is flourishing, the day-to-day does not matter, the individual life doesn't matter as much, and so it becomes a little less important.
Well, it's like, for instance, you think about body integrity is important in Orthodox Judaism because their belief system for the afterlife is that your body will literally rise out of the ground and walk towards the kingdom of, or they don't really have heaven, but you'll be with God again. Right?
Yeah.
So the idea of somebody being cut up into pieces or being immolated, right? So that you cremate someone, right? They don't believe in that. But in the same way they believe in the integrity of the body, like you're not supposed to have tattoos and you're not supposed to get a bunch of crazy piercings and things, right? But of course, that's to the nth degree. The same people who cut off your children's foreskin believe in intense body integrity otherwise.
Yeah. I'm suddenly having flashbacks to History of the World Part 1. He missed. I'm going to go for a follow-up on Tuesday.
I don't even know how that's possible.
It was his first day.
How did we get talking about... Oh, right. Allowing things to pass.
Yeah.
Allowing things to pass. But I don't know how many more stories
Speaking of,
we want to talk about.
Speaking of Judaism,
I'm
King Solomon.
I'm a little Jewish.
King Solomon and the ring, this too shall pass.
That wasn't King Solomon. It was actually it was actually a Persian parable, fable, tale. It's from Persia where the story comes from, but it's not King Solomon. King Solomon was very wise, but the story of this too shall pass, the ring, on the ring.
I had heard it attributed to King Solomon's wife.
Yeah, it's not. But that's fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, I just want to attribute it to the region with which it belongs in. I'm sure it just doesn't belong to Judaism. It belongs to Persia.
Yeah.
But yes, this too shall pass. And that's good and bad.
Yeah.
It's something that I try and hold on to myself. But of course, that sounds like, the guy with the man bun would tell you about this too shall pass.
And the spiritualism.
I was a religious
Buddhism.
I was a religious studies double major. So,
well, that's an interesting thing. I've realized I've actually been to biblical studies. I've been to a bar mitzvah. I have no idea what they're called, but a mosque sermon.
Didn't you go to a bat mitzvah?
No, bar mitzvah.
No. Well, we went to his bar mitzvah, but I think we went to his sister's bat mitzvah too.
I believe so. Yeah, because we went to two different ones.
Yeah, because
so
they were conservative. Well, their father was conservative.
Yeah.
Judaism.
Yeah, and the mother was very hardcore.
Very hardcore Christian.
No. You're thinking of that. We went to her bat mitzvah. I went to Paul's bar mitzvah.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Which was a friend of mine from school, just different. So
yeah.
His family was extraordinarily Orthodox. They had I remember because they had a Honda Odyssey where the door opened on its own.
Did you wear a kippot as you walked into the synagogue?
I don't think
a yarmulke, as the Yiddish
I was
would
so
say.
young at the time. I don't think that they actually cared that much.
I wonder how a Jewish man would have a yarmulke and a man bun, because if y'all can look, like where my man bun is where.
I guess they have the hole in the center and they just poke it out. The point of the yarmulke is to cover the head. You have
See, I'm determined to believe that the yarmulke came around to cover up the Jewish bald spot. That's where I think it came from.
Well, they're covering the head for something, but I don't think it's that.
Notice that it just perfectly covers that spot. You know, it is funny, and I hate to say this. I was at Starbucks a couple weeks ago, and I saw a guy with a yarmulke, and I was like, ooh, neat! Well, there's people have so few trappings in regards to their faith these days anymore, right? And there's something about that. It's like, I bet you're really interesting to sit down and talk to.
Yeah.
And again, the Abrahamic tradition was something that I spent a lot of time studying in college, and particularly Judaism. And so I'd love to sit down as a goyim, as a Gentile, I should say. I'm not a goyim, but I would love to sit down as a Gentile and kind of share my experience. Although I do have a Jewish ancestor. I know I've said that before on the show.
Well, yeah, I've talked to. It was funny. I was talking to this old.
But it's just one. It's just one. It's not like it's a whole bunch. It's just one.
I was talking to an old New Yorker, and this was way back when I was working somewhere, and we just kind of got off onto a topic because he's an old man and he's lonely and he wants somebody to talk to. That happens a lot in retail. So we were talking.
That's the basis of our friendship.
Yeah. So we were just chatting about various religious things, just kind of mulling it over, and it ends up.
Can I talk to you about the Church of Scientology?
Oh god, no. He was actually, he was a rabbi when he was younger, but he actually ended up, or at least training to be a rabbi, and he ended up being a religious studies professor at New York University.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's actually pronounced Rob, like broccoli Rob. Yeah. He was a grocer, not a religious scholar.
Yeah, his last name was Ignatius, so it was Rob I.
Rob Ignatius. I think Ignatius is a great name. But leave it to me, old SPQR shitposting man that I am. I don't even know how we got down that tangent. Oh, well, so my dad was a minister. My dad's still alive. I always feel weird saying my dad was anything. He's still alive and fine.
He just doesn't practice anymore.
Right. Well, he became a social worker because he's like, well, I could either stand up behind this podium and really not do a lot of good, or I could actually take my faith and go help people.
Yep.
And helping people wasn't like, you need Jesus in your life. That was never my
not
my
a
dad.
missionary.
No. It was legitimately trying to help people.
Yeah.
And
if you know any social workers, give them a hug.
Yeah, because they aren't paid.
They aren't paid. No one goes into social work to get rich, and it's a hard work. It's hard
well, and
work.
for my dad, he was a minister. You're not getting paid. I
No.
mean, unless you're like, a shyster.
There's a lot of those.
Or a Catholic.
Why am I suddenly reminded of Biltmore Baptist?
Ooh. It's a mega church up in the Asheville area.
Absolutely
Huge.
mega church.
By the way, weird when you go to their church service and they do the whole fun like birth of Jesus and Santa Claus, and then the second act is the motherfucking passion play, and they're literally nailing Jesus to the cross, and you're like, I just wanted to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, well, this is what you get for going to the Baptist.
Stop! He's already dead.
See, as one of the sect of Christians, we get to mock the other sects. That's how it works.
Oh my god!
If you're the Lutherans, you get to do the same.
It was just. I was having a good time. We had punch. We were singing Christmas carols, and then they come back.
I cannot
and the lights turn low.
What gets me more than that, and it has nothing to do with the play itself, is the fact that they handed out little cards. So you go to any large church, or even a small church, and they don't recognize you, and they'll hand you a little card that you write down your name on and all the prayers you want to do.
Zip code, credit card number,
well, if it's,
blood type.
If it's there, yes. And so they handed everybody pens, and of course mine didn't work. And at the end, they're like, and make sure to drop your pen back off. They didn't even give us the pens. They wanted the pens back. This is a place that was like a mega church. It was literally the size of a factory. They have a Christian Starbucks in the front to serve coffee to the people coming in, and it's like, wow, you guys don't even do coffee. You have to buy the coffee.
I just had a brilliant idea.
Money changers.
I just had a brilliant idea. We open an Episcopal coffee shop. Wait for it, and we call it "and also with brew." Bonus pony pun of the week. It's not really a pony pun, but it is a pun, and also with brew.
Oh. This is why Episcopalians can never watch Star Wars. May the Force be with you. And also with you. Let us pray.
Our Vader, who art in the Death Star. Scary be thy name.
We can only hope that kingdom never come.
I really don't know where to go from. There's a million stories, and I know we've shared stories before, and I don't want this to be like hours of this, but I just thought it would be a really fun opportunity for us to kind of talk about how we met, and for me to get sappy, even though you, as the Vulcan that you are, keeping your emotions bottled up. Our friendship has always been a steadfast anchor in my life.
Not to be too topical, but I feel like if I was to let my emotions out on this topic, I'd probably end up with something like a concentrated version of if you mixed Alex Jones and Rush Limbaugh.
Wow. What, angry at me? And
here's everything.
And here's when you did this shit that you don't remember. Except I do remember. It's my gift and my curse. It's my gift and my curse with the eidetic memory. So, but it does really weird people out because I remember a face from forever. Remember, I lived in Raleigh for a time as a boy, and I've approached people as adults and say, "Didn't we go to school together at Lynn Road Elementary School? I'm Robert, so and so. Do you remember this? We were in 4th grade class with Miss Robinson." How do you know that? I'm sorry. I'm really good with faces and have a memory. I realize I've made you very uncomfortable. I'm very sorry. I will see myself out. Like, it really weirds it just like because people don't have the recall that you do. Yeah. Plus plus it makes you feel like a weirdo because you're like, well, I thought we had more of a formative good friendship, but apparently not. Apparently you didn't hold on to this the same way I did.
I think I remember I remember 2 people from when I was in the 3rd grade, and one of them grew up to hate me. So much so that he actually refused to acknowledge my existence whenever we were in the same room because he was also in the Boy Scouts. And his father was a very good man who actually
Who was it?
His father.
No, who was it in the Boy Scouts? Because
it wasn't our troop.
We were also in Boy Scouts with Hobie Riddle.
It wasn't our troop.
And that guy was a dick.
Yeah, it wasn't our troop.
It wasn't our troop. Okay, just another.
You
troop.
might remember his father. I can't remember his father's name. His last name was Lindsay. and he was he was like a troop leader that
Yeah.
ended up making it very high in it. And he was a fantastic man. He died of pancreatic cancer, I think.
Jeez, that takes you quick, man.
It does. It was a surprise to everyone.
There's a member of my church. Now he was a little bit older, but he was diagnosed last fall, and he's gone. I mean, just months.
Yeah,
gone.
and that's what happened to him, and we all felt really bad. But the fact that they had this whole thing, and he still refused to acknowledge my existence. It was like, we were in the same class for 3 years going. We started out really liking each other, and then started hating each other because I was socially awkward, and he was more affluent.
You and I both have had instances with people that we know, knew, that died young.
Yeah.
I had a friend in high school who died of cancer. And it took him quick.
Yep.
It was 18 years old, cancer, and you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. What can we do? And they tried all these things, and it was 9 months later.
Yep.
Gone.
Yep. Sometimes you go to the doctor. I know somebody who I worked with whose wife went to passed out. They were going trick or treating. She passed out while trick or treating. They went to the hospital. They said, "You've got 45 days."
Yeah.
But
at least that's a heads up. My boyhood professor, my homeschool teacher, who I took classes with him for 7 years. Hugely formative. I love him to death, and I don't even know if he understands the impact he's had on my life. There's lessons he taught that I still hold on to now, and I really tried to communicate it the last time I ran into him at some event in downtown Asheville years ago, and I just said, I have to tell you, you had a huge impact on my life. And he was like, "What? I'm glad. I'm glad." But it's, what do you say beyond that, right? But he lost his wife. She had a double aneurysm. She was just in the kitchen and then dead, just gone. And I remember as a boy, I was 13 years old, and that just the sting of that. I knew her, knew them. They had 5 kids, have 5 kids, right? And I just there's something about that that's very formative. And I feel these days people have, after COVID maybe not, but these days most people don't. Most people don't have a lot of firsthand people dying that aren't expected dying. Most of us have great grandparents or grandparents die, but they're generally old or sick or something.
Yeah,
but
it's not unexpected.
We've had a lot of loss like that around us.
Well, I speak of this, and she was extraordinarily old. I want to say she was 98, 97. And her name, I'm not afraid to say it, Irene Lofton, because there's one YouTube video you can find of her where she was on a news article review where she wrote poetry and it's on there. You can hear her speak. She is as sweet and was as sweet as she sounds in that interview. And she was absolutely a blessed person. She was actually a community leader of sorts, just this kind of matriarchal community leader, kind as could be, in an area called Mount Pleasant, north of Charleston. And she was there's actually a group of people, I forgot what they're called, like Lundys or something, that are actually native to that area.
Where?
Mount Pleasant, north of Charleston.
Well, the Lumbee are based out of eastern North Carolina.
Okay, they're not Lumbee then. But there's a group of people who are kind of local to that area, and she was some great thing. Mount Pleasant now is just turned into pretty much trying to be Myrtle Beach, which is trying to be Miami. So
it's another interesting thing. Some of our European listeners may not know this because they think that old Native American culture has been wiped out. But in the South in particular, and definitely in North Carolina, we have a rich... I would say most North Carolinians have a deep knowledge of the tribes that used to be in our area, and so many of our locations are still. Well, the Cherokee are kind of a problem because they try and make sure other tribes don't get recognized, and they're big dicks about it.
Well,
there's a tribe in Western North Carolina called the Melungeon tribe, and they were a hybrid tribe of Native Americans, freed African slaves, and Spaniards.
I've actually met like a group of activists, one of their activist groups,
the Melungeons, and they are wildly, as you might imagine, culturally, that is a wildly interesting group of freed West African slaves, Native Americans, and Spaniards, and it's just it's very interesting, but they can't get recognition.
No, they have no recognition because, weirdly enough, the Cherokee, and this is kind of funny because I'm going to have to throw an amazing amount of shade at Cherokee here for a second. The way that they have to get it is apparently the way that they're restricted, the Melungeons are restricted from getting access to any kind of recognition, is the bloodline.
Right, they don't have enough Native American bloodline.
And Cherokee is the first but the Cherokee tribe is the first person to put their foot down and say, bloodline doesn't matter. And it's bitch, if it doesn't matter,
whatever.
why are you pushing?
Anyways, I say all that to say, we still have areas that are named. Many of our place names, our town names are still.
I think Nantahala is actually
Nantahala, Kanita. There's a lot of those communities that are traditional.
That to be said, I've been to Cherokee.
Catawba.
Yeah.
For God's sakes.
I've been to Cherokee, actually the Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina. I've been there for work, so not, to go to Harrah's. But I've been there multiple times, and everyone I met there was super nice. Sure. So, I mean, I will say that. They always, whenever I go there, they all seem
It's a very, very poor part of the state, though.
Well, yeah, Southern Appalachia is a poor area of the world. People like not to not think that, but it's true.
So I'd like to leave on a positive note, and I think we probably should wrap things up because obviously you and I could just talk about our lives and our experiences. There's lots of stories, as y'all have heard on the show. We just kind of naturally fall into stories, whereas at least in the Foley of Man, we generally are more directed on trying to stay on topic with the chapter. If you liked this format, if you liked just us kind of sharing stories from our lives, stories about our families, let us know, because it'd be very easy for us to do more of this. I don't think we'd necessarily we'd probably release it under the Foley of Man too. Anyways, if you like it, let us know. We'd be very happy to make more. That being said, I look forward to many more years of this. I don't see any reason to stop. And I want to thank y'all for making our lives a part of your lives and being so supportive. It is the reason why we do this is because you enjoy it. Yep. We enjoy making it, but if it's just us, I don't know, we just save it for posterity.
We'd be kind of milling around with a whole bunch of ideas trying to find something that worked is really what it is. Sure. Because we've done that. We like you had mentioned a while back in this conversation, we have been doing this for a while in various formats.
We had a podcast called Random Frequency, and it was what was popular back in 2006, which is like recap shows. So it's like we talked about music, and we talked about movies, and we talked about arts, and talked a little bit about the news. Like
the games.
Everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And it was fun. But it was just what everyone else was doing. And you can certainly say that what we're doing now is very unique. It's very niche.
Yes. Kind of a analysis of Pony is very, very niche.
Yeah.
No one does that.
Well, no.
Not a single soul.
No. You're being unfair, but two, if I had to give you if I gave you 60 seconds to pitch what our show is to someone who has no idea what we're talking about, it would be very difficult to say.
Yeah, I feel like it would be interesting if you had some kind of niche that I wasn't part of, trying to say, okay, now you tell me how you feel about this.
I could drag you into disc golf or real estate, but that's not as interesting of a podcast.
No.
Well, and you're into high art film, right? So that is something that we share. So the things that I'm super passionate about are things that you are as well. I'm super passionate about music. I don't really share that here, but I am a musician. I spent a lot of time on the road playing gigs and that sort of thing. And I know the guy in the Man Bun, shocking, plays music, right?
You'd never guess that he played the guitar in college.
Played the guitar before then. Played guitar for a long time. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for 4 years of the Foley of Man. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you for the fan art. Thank you for being on the Discord. Thank you for all the kind messages. Thank you for making fun of us.
Thank you for being a friend.
Traveled down the road and back again.
Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
Thank you for being a friend. So I would just like to say, from our hearts to yours, for Chris, I'm Robert. This has been the Foley of Man. Thanks for joining us. And here's to at least 4 more years, my friends. God bless you. Stay healthy, stay out of trouble, and we'll see y'all next time.
It's all over, but the cry.
All right, so when are we going to tell them the real story of how we met?
Look, I don't care what you did with the chicken, okay?
Listen, okay, all right. Man, rainforest was one thing, okay? But drop it with the fucking chicken. Her name was Henrietta. She was a human female. It was a chicken suit.
Look, all I'm saying is that planning to drop a C4 into the center of the lobby was not a good idea.
Listen, man, at least I'm not like you dirty fucking crinklers.